Okay, it is a minute past the hour, so welcome. My name is Lane Pierce, and I am the program executive for the York Wright Leadership Training Program that's run out of the Grand Encampment, Knights Templar, United States of America. And I am quite privileged to work with a team of 6 guys total, and we travel about the United States in 8 different locations and deliver executive class leadership training to all members of the Masonic York Wright family. So that means that this training is also available to you if you are here with the Eastern Star. So today I want to talk for the 90 minutes that I have about leadership in a volunteer organization. Now, it's important to stop and think about what's different in volunteer organizations versus a non-volunteer organization, and how how you might lead those kinds of organizations. You see, in Masonry and in the Star and chapter, council, commandery, and so forth, we're all volunteers. We're there because we want to be there. So as a leader, we have to think about what keeps people coming back, what keeps them interested, and how we can lead the organization to the best of our ability, which means serving those that are there. So those are some of the things that we're going to look at today. I do want to let you know that the trainings that we do around the country are full day-long trainings, and they're in 3 different classes. The first class is called York Wright Leadership Level 101, and it's about individual assessments of your personal leadership skills. The second class is 201, and it's about the group dynamics of leadership. And then the third year class, or the last class, is actually designated as 401, and it is called Influential Communications. Now, what I've attempted to do in the hour and a half that I have is to give you a flavor, give you a taste for what we teach, but also to impart genuinely some useful skills that you can use today, right off the bat. So please bear in mind that I'm going to cram 3 days of training into 90 minutes. So that means that this is a taste and there's more to learn. So I do want to encourage you to take advantage of this wonderful resource available to you. My contact information is on the screen, and I'll also close with a slide that has my contact information as well. And you'll see that there's a yorkwrightleadership.org URL. I encourage you to go visit that URL, and you can read more about the program. So let's go ahead and get started. There are 3 primary elements that I'm going to cover with respect to leadership today. The first is being personally effective. It's really important that you as an individual are effective yourself as a leader. Do you have the skills to manage your time appropriately, and so forth? The second is being effective with groups. You know, if you don't have a group, if you're all by yourself, then there's really nothing to lead. So it's one thing to be personally effective, but then how do we also become effective with the group? The third is being an effective communicator. And admittedly so, especially in the male side of this organization, we're probably not the best communicators. We tend to have a lot of good ideas, and we tend to do a lot of really good work, but we're probably not really great or really effective at communicating those ideas in the work. So you'll notice in the 3 primary elements, there is a common reoccurring theme, and that's about effectiveness. So let's dive in and look at it first from the York Wright Leadership 101 perspective as personally effective leadership. So I want to start off with this idea that you need to know where you're going. It's important to also know where you are, but you need to know where you're going as a leader, as an individual. Do you have goals and objectives? And more importantly, are they written down? You see, you are where you are, and we would call that the current state. And where you want to get to, let's say the goals, the objectives that you want to reach, or maybe membership goals that you have, projects that you want to do. We'd call that the new state. Now, the shortest path between the current state and the new state is a direct line. And as much as we'd love to follow a direct line to our goals, into our end states, rarely is that the case. More often, we're following a path that looks probably something like this. And I bet you've been there before. It's where you start off with a great idea and you start moving towards that idea. But you end up, things show up. We call them obstacles. And so you end up having to wander off the path in order to get to an obstacle. Think about it like this. Most of you've probably taken an airplane ride. Well, I live in Dallas, Texas. And let's say that I wanted to go to New York. Well, if I go down to DFW Airport and I'm going to fly into, let's say, LaGuardia, the airplane doesn't lift off the ground and make a straight line to LaGuardia and then lower down on the ground. It actually has to maneuver around a bunch of obstacles. It has to go around storms, bad weather, and other traffic, other airplanes in the air. So it doesn't take a straight path, but it takes a bit of a wandering path where it's moving back and forth. But the closer and closer it gets to its destination, its new state, if you will, then the smaller the changes are, and it ends up hitting precisely where it wants to go, and that is the runway, landing on the runway there in LaGuardia. We always have to be prepared for obstacles. And anytime you set a goal, you're going to get obstacles. So count on them, want them, appreciate them, because if you never run into an obstacle, you probably ought to look around and make sure that you're actually moving forward. Now, one of the first mistakes that a lot of people make when they get into a leadership modality is they actually don't set a goal. They don't set a new state. They just go, wow, I'm the leader. I am here now, and my job is to lead, so I will lead. But if you ask them, where are you going? Sometimes they don't really have a very good answer, and they haven't thought it out. Any road you take is okay if you don't know where you're going. This was exemplified by a young lady. You may have heard of her. Her name was Alice. And she was going down the road, and she came to a fork in the road, and there was a Cheshire cat in the tree above her in the branches. And she said, excuse me, but would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? And the Cheshire cat grinned and said, well, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to. And Alice said, well, I don't really care much where. And the cat says, then it doesn't really matter which way you go. Alice said, well, so long as I get somewhere. And the cat said, oh, that you're sure to do, if you only walk long enough. And sometimes people approach leadership that way. They just keep going and figure they're going to end up somewhere. But I want to encourage you, as a leader, especially of a volunteer organization, to know where you want to go. When you decide to move into a leadership position, begin with the idea of, why do I want to be a leader? Where am I going to go with that? So hold on to that idea, and let's look at what leadership is. Leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. A process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards an achievement of a goal. So that's a really great definition of leadership. Let's break it down a little bit. So first of all, leadership is a process. Well, that's great news for us, because what that means is that if it's a process, then there is a map to follow. There's a process to be executed. And if I can follow a process, then you can follow a process, and vice versa. If we know that somebody has a process for doing something, it's like following a recipe, right? If you want to bake sourdough bread, there is a recipe. Follow the recipe, and at the end, you will get sourdough bread. Leadership is very much the same way. It is a process. It is specifically a process of social influence. Now, I have to tell you that sometimes I'll mention the term social influence or just influence, and I'll get people go, oh no, that's influence. Influence is bad. And, to which I respond, well, influence really isn't a bad thing. Influence is what we do as human beings. We spend our day, our time really attempting to influence each other. Every time you open your mouth, you're attempting to influence somebody, even if it's only to your way of thinking. So it's not as influence good or bad. It's really more about where's your heart, right? If your heart's in a good place and you're attempting to influence somebody from that good place, then I would say that's good influence, and you should be good at influencing others. More especially if you're a parent, you really need to be a good influencer. So leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others. Remember, if you don't have a group, a tribe, a set of people surrounding you that are moving together, then you're really just out for a walk. You're not actually leading. So we want to maximize the efforts of others. And how do we want to maximize that? We want to maximize it specifically towards the achievement of a goal. So influence is the key. Influence and how you influence a volunteer is, I think, the key focus that we need to keep in the back of our mind during this discussion today. Influence, another word for that is persuasion. Like influence, persuasion is something that you're attempting to do. It's not good or bad. It just depends on your heart. So be sure that you're in a good place and asking people to go along that journey with you. There was a great quote that I read, and I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly, but I can give you the idea. And it said that if you want to build a boat, don't task people with the menial tasks of going out and gathering wood and nails and tools and pounding together a boat, but rather inspire them and persuade them for the longingness of the sea. When they have that desire, when they crave the sea, they will build the boat. And that is the difference. That is the key to getting volunteers to band together and pursue whatever it is that they want under your leadership. So some little bit more definition of a leader. Leadership is learned. We mentioned earlier, leadership's a process, so that's great. Leadership is a transferable skill. So it doesn't matter how much you know or how much you don't know. It's transferable. So you can go learn, and more importantly, you can teach others. And in the leadership program, we encourage you to teach others. Leadership requires a development of habits, and you personally developing good habits that are in alignment with the things and tasks that you need to do as a leader. I have a recommendation for you on a book. It's called The Greatest Salesman on the Earth or of the World. I think it's The Greatest Salesman on the Earth. And it's by an author named Og Mandino, Mandino. And actually, the book's quite old. You can find it on Amazon for a very small sum. It's not about selling. It's everything. It has everything to do with developing great habits. And so if you want to know how to create habits, I recommend you get a copy of The Greatest Salesman on the Earth. Let's see, any personality type can also learn to be an effective leader. There are lots of different kinds of personality types, and we're going to explore some of those later. But it doesn't matter what personality type you possess, they all have leadership qualities. So you qualify as an excellent leader. Leadership is critical to the success of any group working towards one set of goals. If your goals are too scattered, then your work is diffused. The effort is diffused, and you might not get the goal that it is that you're looking for. So we want to coordinate a group towards one set of goals. And then lastly, and I think this is really a very Masonic thing, is that good leaders are also really great followers. In fact, I think the best form of leadership is called servant leadership. Many years ago, I used to run a project team, and these were guys that were working on computer systems, and I would take them into a data center, and they would be heads down on the keyboard doing this. And, I was the boss, but I was the guy that walked in the room and I would say, do you need a cup of coffee? What can I do for you? You see, as a leader, if I could do those things, those menial tasks, like get a cup of coffee or order pizza or whatever it was, go get them a manual or anything that they needed, it enabled them to do their task. So being a good servant is being a good leader. Masonry teaches us to follow before we lead. And even as leaders, in a very circular way, we're really following the group or the will of the group, because you can't take somebody where they don't want to go. Remember, everybody can be a great leader. There is no leadership gene. Nobody's born with it. Some people have certain talents and skills that perhaps they've picked up through life that's worked out well for them. But you too can learn to be an excellent leader. Leadership, remember, is about people. Management is about things. Management is about maintaining the status quo and keeping things on par, keeping things the way that they are. In other words, we manage computer systems. We manage the operation of a vehicle. We manage a business to keep the cash flow going through the business and so forth. Leadership is what takes a business up to the next level. Leadership is what moves people. Leadership takes everything up to the next level. So if you thought about, well, I want to be a manager, I want to manage my lodge, I get that. And I want to ask you to modify your thinking, modify your paradigm on it. Remember, management is for maintaining the status. Leadership is for advancement, and leadership is for people. So let's look at what some of the qualities of leadership are. And I like to use the DoD manual from the United States Department of Defense on traits of a leader. So there are 5 traits that make up a leader, the DoD says. The first is the hardihood to take risks. In other words, do you have the guts to get out there and do something that may be a bit risky? A good leader will take calculated and worthwhile risks. Do you have quiet resolution? What does that mean? Quiet resolution is really about determination, I think. It's about deciding that whatever comes up, without making a big hoo-ha about it, without making any excuses about it, deciding, being resolved that you're going to do it, you're going to persevere and get through. So next is the readiness to share in rewards with subordinates. The best leaders that I know are the ones that say, thank you for the accolades, but it really wasn't me. It was the team. I couldn't have done it without them. These are the guys that did the work, right? So a good leader shares in those rewards and accolades. They also have an equal readiness to take the blame when things go wrong, because things will go wrong. And when they do, a leader will step up and say, the buck stops with me. I hear it. I got you. Yes, there's room for improvement, and they'll make the adjustment, but they take it on themselves and never push it to the team. And then lastly, the 5th is the nerve to survive storm and disappointment. Because remember, like on that first slide where we've got our current state and our new state, a straight path is easy to do, and we all want the straight path, but there's obstacles. So do you have the nerve to stay the course? Because you're going to have to move around obstacles. You're going to have storms in the way and disappointment. But so long as you stay focused on that end goal, on the new state, you eventually will get there. Out of all the leadership traits, though, I think the one that you'll see that continues to show up over and over and over again, more especially with volunteer organizations, is the idea of effectiveness. Effectiveness in 2 ways. First, A leader has to be personally effective before they lead others. That's why in the York Wright Leadership Training Program, we start with personal leadership. Am I effective as a personal leader in doing the things that I need to do? The second, and which is even a little bit more important, is that good leaders are not just personally effective, but they also promote effectiveness in others. So there you have it. If you want to be a good, powerful leader, the key is focus on effectiveness. First for yourself, next for others. Well, if I'm going to be personally effective as a leader, how do I do that? Let's pause for a moment, and I want to see if there are any questions so far. And Miss Beth, just checking in, do we have any questions in the queue yet?
No, we do not.
Okay. So
there is a bit of a lag between you and the video.
Okay.
But it's about 10 or 15 seconds, but there are no questions.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to remind everybody that you can put questions into the YouTube, I guess it is on your side. And Miss Beth will get those, and I'll check in with her to see if there are any questions that I can answer for you. So pressing on about becoming a personally effective leader, I want to share with you probably the most important thing that I teach in all classes, all presentations that I do. And it is so important that I make a point to include it in all my classes. And it's this idea about how to create personal success or effectiveness, if you will. So would you like to know the secret, the formula for personal success? Yes, of course I do. It's really easy. The formula, C greater than E, is the formula for personal success. What this is that a cause leads to an effect. Cause leads to an effect. You see, we live in a causal universe. Scientists tell us that the original cause was the Big Bang. At some point, there was nothing, right? There was just a single dot of energy, and the universe went bang into existence. I personally don't think it made a bang sound. I think it made an ohm sound, which is a very important sound in many cultures. But the universe came into existence all in an instant, and that was the first cause. Everything after that was an effect of the cause. Let me put it another way, make it really easy. You have a vehicle, and you probably have a key, and you insert your key into the ignition. You cause the key to be inserted, which has the effect of moving some little pins called tumblers, and that has the effect of lining them up, which allows the cylinder to be rotated, which is a cause. You rotate the cylinder, and that has an effect of moving a couple of electrical contacts together, which is the cause of moving electricity through a circuit, which is the effect of turning a small motor, which is the cause of turning a bigger motor. You guys get the idea, right? It's a cause-effect chain. Now, the formula for personal success is applied in this way. If I assume that I am the cause for everything that goes on in my life, in my universe, then I have control over it. I have the ability to do something about it. Now, we are not taught to take responsibility for everything. We're taught that things happen. And it's true, stuff does happen outside of us. Granted, I give you that. Stuff occurs, stuff happens. However, if I assume that I am the responsible party, the cause for stuff happening, now I'm actually empowered to do something about it. And notice I said responsible. This is not about fault or blame, but it's everything about responsibility. So you've probably heard this before. You've heard somebody at work say, that guy at work, Bob or Frank or whatever it is, that guy, he makes me so angry. Well, listen to my language. Bob makes me angry. If that's the way I'm thinking, then on a very, very subtle level, I'm actually putting Bob in charge of my emotions if Bob makes me angry. The fact is that I chose to be angry at whatever it was that Bob did. The emotion was actually under my control. Okay. But if I put it outside, now Bob's in control and I can't do anything about it until Bob does something about it. If I take it back, if I take responsibility and say, well, I got angry when Bob did that, now I can actually do something about it. In a very, very real way, you actually create your experience. You create it through your five senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling, touching, tasting. And it is the encoding of that information in your head and your perception of it, which manifests itself as your experience. So you are the cause of your experience. Now, if you think I'm kind of getting off the rails here a little bit, and I'm getting out there in what I like to call woo-woo land, weird stuff, I want you to think for a moment, who's the most pragmatic, or what company is the most pragmatic organization on the planet? I think you'd probably agree with me that insurance companies are. They do everything according to actuarial tables. The math tells them, right? The probabilities are that this thing will happen. It's not about fault or blame, but it's about the probability and your participation in that. If you were sitting at a four-way stop sign and your foot is on the brake and a car comes up behind you and they tag you in the back, is that your fault? No, it's not your fault. You call the insurance company up and they even tell you, I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce, that's a not at fault accident. We got you taken care of. And they hang up the phone and you go about your way and you're happy. And what do? They go to the computer and they put in, the accident, one mark on the board. And then maybe 6 months later, you're sitting at the same intersection. Your foot's on the brake and somebody hits you in the back. Well, you call up the insurance company and they go, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce. I hate to hear that happen to you. That's a not at fault accident. We got you covered. But then renewal time comes around, right? What happens at renewal time? Well, what they do is they increase your premiums. And you get all upset and you go, why do my rates go up? And they go, well, you had 2 accidents. And then you get really indignant and you go, yeah, but it wasn't my fault. And they go, right, it wasn't your fault. But you're doing something. And it may be that because you're a creature of habit, as we are as humans, you go through the same intersection twice a day, every day, 5 days a week, going to and from work. And that happens to be one of the most dangerous intersections in town. And the probability of you in an accident at that intersection is higher than at other places. Your insurance company is going to charge you for that because they know that you're participating. You are the cause. So it makes sense to go ahead and choose to be at cause. When you're at cause, what happens is you get results. When you're at effect, in other words, what the cause leads to, something else is the cause, then you have reasons. So if you ever want to check yourself and go, am I at cause here? Just ask, am I responsible? Or if you want to know if you're at effect, just ask, do I have my reasons? Well, I didn't start that business because the government takes all my money. Or, well, we have low membership because nobody goes out and recruits. The building's in disarray because, Bob didn't fix the plumbing, whatever it is, right? If you have reasons, then you're at effect. And that, my friends, is a disempowered place and a place that you cannot lead from. You must be at cause. So I want to invite you to give up your reasons, move from effect to cause, and what you will get is results every time. Remember, it's not about blame. It's about being responsible. Stephen Covey, in his awesome book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about this. But he says it a little bit differently. What Stephen Covey says is that you have a responsibility. And let me slow it down. You have a response-ability. and that is your ability to respond in any situation. That is what being at cause is. It is choosing to respond rather than developing excuses for why you could not. If you want to be personally successful, you want to be an effective personal leader, and you want to lead volunteers and improve your organization, then I invite you, nay, I insist that it be your duty to choose to be at cause 100% for everything that's going on in your life. So whether you're at lodge, chapter, council, commandery, OES, any other organization, whatever's going on, decide to be the responsible person, because only then you can do something about it. And that may include gathering a group of people together and leading them in a direction that's going to solve that problem. When you choose responsibility, do it in all cases. If you buy something, if you sell something, if you say something, if you hear something, if you take a training, if you watch this video, it is your responsibility to get value out of it. I can't open your head and open your heart and pour knowledge and value in. It's your responsibility to choose to accept that information and to actually inculcate it and put it into practice, thereby getting value out of it. So I want to encourage you, be at cause. You do quite real, in a very real way, create the experience that you have. So I want to pause again for a moment and ask Miss Beth if any questions have popped up in the chat yet.
The only question was for you to expand on the different trainings that are available, but you could do that at the end.
Okay. And I do want to encourage you to go to the yorkrightleadership.org webpage. And those trainings are detailed there. The history of the program is also detailed there. And I can certainly explain more about that as well. Okay, so pressing on. So we now have made the decision to be at cause. And we're going to be at cause for everything that goes on, including developing successful programs and doing the things that it takes to be successful and getting the right people in place. So let's look at successful programs and what it takes to create successful programs. So the first thing is that a successful program is always leader initiated. Now, a leader may get input from the team, from the group, as to what the program should be. But the leader is the one who will initiate the action. I would be willing to bet that everybody watching this can remember or recall someone at some time coming into their organization. Maybe somebody came into your Eastern Star, and it may have been a young person, it may be an older person, it doesn't really matter. But they were a spark. They came in and they were just on fire. They were excited and they were full of motivation and full of energy. And if you feed that spark, they will light a fire amongst everybody else. And it's like magic happens, right? Everybody gets energized, things start to get done. So they are, in effect, being a leader. Your job as a leader is to promote them to that, to fan their spark, right? To get the flames going. So successful programs are leader initiated. They're also comprehensive and detailed. It's important to know where you're going and how you want to get there. What are the things that are going to create or define success for you? Thirdly, they're communicated. And this is the thing I go back to, we're not really good at this, especially the guys among us. But it's one thing to have really great programs and great examples of things. And man, you could have a whole list of speakers that are going to come in every month. But if you don't ever tell anybody, then it's all for naught. They won't show up because they won't know. So communicating is a key to creating successful programs. They need to be adopted. Adopted by whom? By the group, by the membership in our case. If the group doesn't adopt it, then they won't put any energy to it. So make sure that it is adopted. And then lastly, on successful programs, as a leader, and this is a key point for you as a leader for volunteer organizations, you need to pick the right people and put them in with the right tasks. Certain people have a proclivity to do things, particular things, very well. And when we can identify those people and align them with the tasks that we need, then again, magic happens. The task gets done, the program gets done, and we as leaders and we as the group end up reaping the rewards and benefits thereof. So now as a leader, we need to start to think about personalities and the way people actually operate within a group. Would you agree with me that if you knew that a person did not communicate well, they were a bit of a loner, it doesn't make them a bad person, it doesn't make them not a leader, but we probably don't want to put that person in charge of marketing, communications, and creating parties. Fair enough, right? If we have somebody that is not good with detailed information, by the way, that's me. I'm more of an abstract thinker. So that's a person that you probably don't want to put in the secretary's position. I was the secretary of my lodge once because I needed to be. We needed somebody in the role, so I stepped up and did it. But I told the guys, I said, you know what? I'll do it. I'm the last guy that you want as the secretary because I'm not the detailed type of person. So the more that you know about a person and the way that they interact with others and with the world, then you can create an environment where they will thrive, they will produce excellent work, and a whole group benefits and everybody's happier for it. So in our Leadership 101 class, we teach some work by a lady named Susan Dellinger, and it's called Psychogeometrics. Many of you are probably familiar with 4 different personality types. There's all kinds of personality assessments that tell us these. There's the Myers-Briggs and the Keirsey, and there's DISC, and there's Core Map, and there's all kinds of different types. What Susan Dellinger did was attempt to really make it very simple in a business context. And she identified 5 types actually, but 4 are most useful. The 5th is a bit confusing, so we leave it out. And those 4 types are the triangle, the rectangle, the circle, and the squiggle. Now, let's look at each one of these personality types. And as I go through describing these, I'd like you to think about, how does this apply to you? Are you a triangle, a rectangle, a circle, or a squiggle? Which one fits you? And who do you know that make up the other types? So first of all, the triangle. The triangle is mission-oriented. They tend to be very driven to achievement. I'm going to put these up here, and then we'll talk about them. I like it better that way. Okay, so the triangle is mission-oriented. When a triangle has the mission and they know what the mission is, get out of the way. They will go and execute on the mission, and they will execute perfectly. They will yield the best results that you can get. They're driven to achievement. They're self-motivated and self-confident. Sometimes a triangle may even seem a bit arrogant, but they're just really driven, and they don't need external energy. They will generate it themselves. They're high energy, they get things done, and they tend to take a logical process. On the downside of a triangle, they may appear to be insensitive to people. Now, they're not necessarily, but they may feel, it may seem that they're insensitive to people. They may seem to be a poor listener or self-absorbed, and sometimes they can irritate or frighten other people because triangles can be very direct, and they like you to be very direct with them. So I'm going to share a video with you of an archetypical triangle. And this video is from the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, and Richard Dreyfuss is the triangle. Watch how he interacts with one of the people, one of the characters.
Won't you tell him please to put on some speed? Follow my lead. Oh, how I need someone to watch over me.
Now pay attention how he's going to help her and how direct he is.
That was the contract guy. Mr. Holland.
It was good.
It was good.
Sure.
Let's all take a break.
I was trying to sing my best.
It was fine. I just want to ask you a question. What do you think the girls really feeling?
I don't know.
You have to know. Or you can't sing it. This song is wistful, Miss Morgan. It's about a woman who is alone in a very, very cold world. And all she wants more than anything is to have someone hold her close. And to tell her that everything's going to be all right. It's about the need for love in your gut. Okay? Try again. From the top. This time I want to do it in a lower key.
Okay, that's an archetypical triangle. You probably noticed that he was very direct with her. And even though he was helping her, she kind of felt like she was getting beat up. You know, she was getting a talking to there. And it seemed a little harsh to her. You could see that on her face. But again, he wasn't being mean. In a triangle world, he was actually helping her, just being quite direct. Okay, so let's go on to a rectangle. Rectangle are data people. They pay enormous attention to detail. They're extremely accurate. They're methodical, excuse me. They're excellent gatherers of data. They're hard workers and they're logical people. These are the people that love graphs and charts. They love to analyze things. They also make great leaders. And the problem with a rectangle is that they may be too busy looking at the data to get started on the project. So you kind of might need to push them along. On the downside of a rectangle, yeah, well, I just mentioned that. They may not get started or may not decide until they've got all the data. Then they can make a decision. The process and the methodology are as important as the results. And other people around them can be distractions for them. Sometimes they're very good putting blinders on and just digging down into the depths of a problem. Funny thing about them is they can drive triangles crazy. Now, a triangle and a rectangle together on a project is actually a very powerful team because you got a guy that's going to dig up all the data and is going to know what the details are. And then you got somebody that's going to put it into action and they are going to perfect it and they're going to keep perfecting it. So a rectangle and a triangle together can be like kind of putting a stick of dynamite in gasoline and lighting the fuse. You're going to get a big output from it. So I want to show you the example of a rectangle, or an archetypical rectangle now. And this is a clip from the movie Apollo 13 with Ed Harris as the mission commander. Remember, they're about the data. So watch how Ed Harris processes this situation when the Apollo 13 capsule is damaged and he needs to get them back.
So you're telling me you can only give our guys 45 hours? That brings them to about there. Gentlemen, that's not acceptable. We gotta talk about power here. Whoa, guys! Power is everything. Power is everything. Without it, they don't talk to us. They don't correct their trajectory. They don't turn the heat shield around. We got to turn everything off now. They're not going to make it to re-entry.
What do you mean everything?
With everything on, the LEM draws 60 amps. At that rate, in 16 hours, the batteries are dead, not 45. And so's the crew. We got to get them down to 12 amps.
How many? You can't run a vacuum cleaner on 12 amps, John.
You got to turn off. We have to turn off the radars, cabin heater, instrument displays, the guidance computer, the whole smash.
Whoa, guidance computer. Well, what if they need to do another burn? Gee, they won't even know which way they're pointing.
The more time we talk down here, the more juice they waste up there. I've been looking at the data for the past hour.
That's the deal.
That's the deal.
Okay, John. And then we finish the burn, we'll power down the left.
Now, in the meantime, we're going to have a frozen command module up there. In a couple of days, we're going to have to power it up, use nothing but the re-entry batteries. We've been tried before. No, we've never even simulated it before, Gene.
Well, we're going to have to figure it out. I want people in our simulators, working re-entry scenarios.
I want you guys to find every engineer who designed every switch, every circuit, every transistor, and every light bulb that's up there. Then I want you to talk to the guy on the assembly line who actually built the thing. Find out how to squeeze every amp out of both of these goddamn machines. I want this mark all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch.
Failure is not an option. Forgive me for the language on that one. But you notice his intensity for the detail, right? Talk to every person who built the light bulb and the guy that designed it and everybody. What got his attention was when John said, I've been looking at the data for an hour. This is what it is. So he needs the data. And once he's got the data, then he's capable of moving forward and making decisions. So now I want to talk about circles real quick. Circles are, they're very people-oriented people. They're great with others. They tend to not get going until everybody's happy, right? Everybody involved has to be happy and on board. What they want to know is how am I doing? And it's how am I doing from the people they're leading. That's who they want to hear it from. They want to know, am I doing a good job for you? They want to always make sure that everybody's involved and they're really a great team player. So if you want somebody that is going to pull a team together, that's going to make sure that everybody in the team is taken care of, you want to identify the circles and make sure that you got a circle on the team. Now, the problem with a circle is they may not be mission oriented, they may not be process oriented. So for the rectangle and the triangle, they can kind of be a little weird, right? That's kind of an oil and water combination there. For the circle, though, it's really about the journey. It's about how we get to the end result. So they're a good complement to those guys that are process oriented and mission oriented. So in this example, the circle is Robin Williams from Dead Poet Society. And in this scene, he's telling his students how to evaluate poetry. And you'll notice how he gets them together and talks to them about the importance of poetry. Notice specifically the attributes of being together and the togetherness that he brings into this clip.
Words and language, no matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. See that look at Mr. Pitt's eye. Like 19th century literature has nothing to do with going to business school or medical school, right? Mr. Hopkins, you may agree with him, thinking, yes, we should simply study our Mr. Pritchard and learn our rhyme and meter and go quietly about the business of achieving other ambitions.
Watch this.
I'd love.
He gets them in a circle. Everybody's equal.
We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering is a noble pursuit necessary to sustain life. Poetry, beauty, romance, love. These are what we stay alive for. And the whole life of the questions of these recurrence, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish. What good it may
Powerful play goes on with you. Powerful play goes on with you and contributes first. Your virtue.
Okay. So you see how he not only got everybody together in a circle, but he got in the circle and put himself below. So he wasn't even above them. He was a part of them. Also, you notice he referred to as we, the human race, and it's about everybody. So that's an archetypical circle right there. A squiggle, which by the way happens to be my personality type. I am a squiggle. Squiggles are fun people. They have great people skills. They're ready for a party or to do something fun. They tend to be creative and they're really good idea people. If you need an idea or to figure something out, find the squiggles in your group and bring them in, and they will give you some champion ideas. The problems with squiggles is they may not understand the terms, the mission, or the goal. They're very in the moment and they're just doing what needs to be done right now. Sometimes they can appear to have a little sense of urgency. That doesn't mean they don't think it's important. They may not plan well. They tend to prefer just to wing it. And they may not be methodical. So squiggles can be an interesting character to really kind of just stir things up and get energy moving. Now, interesting thing about the way squiggles interact with triangles. Squiggles will help a triangle get to completion because a triangle doesn't want to finish until it's perfect. A squiggle's sitting there going, it's fine, it's done. Let's move on. So having a squiggle in a group that is very mission oriented can actually help the group get to closure. So a real quick introduction to a squiggle. And well, I'm not going to introduce the clip. I think you'll get it. So let's run the clip. Yes, some of you probably got that early. That was MacGyver. MacGyver's a squiggle. And squiggles, like I said, these are the people that you give them the problem and then stand back. They will give you back a solution. And guys, I want you to remember, this is a very, very quick explanation of 4 different kinds of types. It's not all of it. But the most important thing I want to remind you is don't ever put anybody in one box. We tend to have primary characteristics of a triangle, a rectangle, a circle, or a squiggle. But that's not just who you are. It is, however, a great way of looking at how to put qualities of people together on a team in order to get some great results. So let me pause again and check in with Miss Beth and see if we have any questions or comments that I can address. Miss Beth?
We do not.
Okay. Well, I hope that signifies I'm doing a good job. All right. Let's go on and look at real quickly 5 levels of leadership from John Maxwell. And if you do choose to come and join the York Wright Leadership Program, you'll have the benefit of getting some great detail on these. What Maxwell talks about is that people have 5 different levels. And when they move higher up into the hierarchy of leadership, they actually don't leave a level behind. But the first level is position or positional. You are the boss because that's your job. You haven't earned it emotionally. You may have earned it out of your own hard work, but you were hired to be the boss, so you're the boss. So people do what you tell them to do. The second level up is you earn their permission. Now people are starting to respect you as a leader, and they give you permission to be the leader. The next level up is you're the leader because of performance. You know what you're doing and you do it well. And people respect that. Not only do they acknowledge you as a boss, they give you permission to be the boss, but now they know that you know what you're doing and they're willing to follow that. The fourth level leader is the kind of leader that is developing people. So again, they don't leave 1, 2, and 3 behind, but now they add on to it that layer of making the other people on the team their leaders. So coaching and developing the team members to be leaders themselves. And then the pinnacle of leadership is when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you create a team dynamic where the team itself is generating their own tasks, their own tasking, if you will, out of their own free will. And they're willing to put in the time to do it. They are willing to give their time to save the company money. Or in our case, they're willing to put in the time to grow the chapter, to see it upon themselves in order to make something happen. That is the pinnacle of leadership. One of my clients is a young man who's a farmer, and he has developed a small company. He's got, I think, 8 employees total. And we were talking the other day about how some of his employees that are in the greenhouse, he said, you know, they came up with this great idea about how effectively we can dry lettuce, you know, and it doesn't cost anything more than what we're doing, but yet our lettuce gets drier, so my customers are happier with it. Great, that's pinnacle level leadership. His employees were figuring out how to improve his company, and he's the one that reaped the rewards from it. That is amazing leadership. One of the things that we talk about in our chapters, although many of us probably aren't aware of it, is the idea of paradigms. And well, let me just cut to the chase. It kind of sounds like this. Well, we've never done it that way before. Or we tried that and that didn't work. And when a person is stuck in an old paradigm, it actually clouds their view of what's possible and what can be done. And so as a result, it strips away initiative. One of the things that a good leader needs to do, especially in a volunteer organization, is you need to find a way to take the organization or the person from their old view to the new view. You have to shift their paradigm and get them to think outside of what things have always been. The way to do that, quite simply, is to be the leader, to be the leader who sees beyond the limitations of their own paradigm. In other words, you must be a leader that is self-aware to realize that there are things that you can't see. There are things that you don't know because you're not aware of them. But if you consult with the members, if you consult with other people in a similar situation, you can extend your paradigm. Look at what's possible, what could happen if you took this new initiative, and then sell that idea through vision to the other people in your organization. So shifting paradigms, getting people to see that it can be done and should be done, is also a characteristic of a leader that you really want to inculcate. And like all these other topics, we'll talk more about that as we get into opportunities where we've got like a day-long training. So I mentioned initiative, and we talked about initiative a little bit, but I want you to understand how important it is. Initiative itself is the single most important factor of effectiveness. Without it, effectiveness of the organization is destroyed. So if you don't have a leader that initiates the action, that takes the initiative, that strikes the spark and fans the flames, then nothing happens. So be the leader that takes initiative. Be the leader that strikes the spark. Sometimes those that are not in a position of leadership can actually provide the spark or the initiative. And if you find that person and you cultivate it, which is pinnacle leadership, that's awesome. If you don't, then what happens is they end up becoming a de facto leader. The organization goes through a paradigm shift where you were the leader and now you're not. Excuse me. And that is just simply less than effective for the organization as a whole. Initiative is the key. Effectiveness is the key. Knowing who has talents to contribute and how to blend those talents into a team is key. So far, so far we've talked about concepts that come from the individual leadership or 101. And just another real quick check-in with Miss Beth. Is there any questions yet?
No, there are not.
Okay, then let's look at the second half. In Leadership 201, which is group dynamics, we contrast that with 101 in this way. In 101, leaders are about themselves, improving themselves, learning, taking risks, willing to invest in themselves and others, and knowing who they are and using that knowledge. In Leadership 201, or the next level of leadership, it's really important to become a mission-focused leader. You need to be group-oriented. You need to care for and pay attention to the needs of the group. Leaders need to be able to understand others, and leaders need to also be able to appeal to others. So understanding others and how they process information is probably even more important now at a Leadership 2 level. Remember, leadership is just influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you can influence people through their own desire to accomplish an outcome, that is perfection in leadership. If your influence has to be through coercion, yeah, let's just say that's not as good leadership. From a follower's perspective, it's important to understand how they're going to look at leadership. And a follower will ask 3 questions the moment that they identify you as a leader. And those 3 questions are, do you care for me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? If you don't pass the test of those 3 questions, then it's going to be difficult for you to lead this person or this group. Remember, everybody actually has a what's in it for me, a self-centered need or purpose. So we need to appeal to that. They need to know, and you need to demonstrate that you care for them and their outcome, that you can help them, and so they can trust you. Now, I want to spend a few quick moments on talking about how people process their world. Earlier, I threw out a very bold statement that, we create our own experience. And I want to go into a little more detail on that so you can begin to understand how, well, let me put it this way. If you've ever been misunderstood, this is the reason why. If you tried to go down a leadership path and people didn't get it, this may explain why. So let's look at how people process information and construct their own experience. So I call this a simplified model of communication. And what happens in the outer world is something occurs. And we would call these events. And we give those events a label, like it could be a first kiss or a child being born, or a label like a terrorist attack. Now, we experience that event through our 5 common senses. We see it, or we see something of it, that's visual. We hear it, or we hear the sounds of it, that's auditory. We feel it, or we have a feeling, an emotional feeling about it, that's kinesthetic. And then we have an olfactory, which is smell, and gustatory, which is taste, experience of it. Now, based on a work by a guy named Csikszentmihalyi Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote a book called Flow. And what Mihaly teaches us is that all this information comes through our VAKONG at about 2 million bits of information every second. That's 2 million bits of information coming into your brain, if you will, your nervous system. Well, you can't process all that information. So what you do is you run 3 primary filters on the information. The first filter is called delete. And delete takes a ton of information and just deletes it from your conscious awareness. For example, right now, you're not thinking about your right hand. Oh, there it is. I do have a right hand. And now you know what it's doing and how your right hand feels. But until I mentioned it, you weren't thinking about it. You were just kind of deleting that information. The second filter is called distort. Distort accounts for the reason why 2 people can listen to the exact same conversation and walk away with 2 completely different meanings of what was said. You know, we have multiple Christian religions based on the same book, but yet the religions differ in their perspective of what it was the book said. That occurs through distortions. Lastly, we run a filter called generalize. Generalize allows us to deal with large volumes of information very, very quickly. So if you ask me, what did you have for lunch today? I might say, oh, I had a sandwich. Well, you don't know what I had, right? Because a sandwich is a generalization. But if I said to you, I had ham and cheese and lettuce and tomato with mayonnaise on wheat bread, now you have a more precise description of what it was that I had. But just to say I had a sandwich is a generalization, and you're left to decide what that means. So we have this event. We experience our VAKOG. We take 2 million bits of information. We delete, distort, and generalize that down to about 128 bits. That's it. That's all the information that we can really process at any one particular time. And this becomes our perception of the events that occurred. Just our perception, because I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, that first kiss was different for you than it was for the other person. Keep that in mind. Your perception of the event was very highly likely very different than theirs. So if you're misunderstood, then perhaps you may need to change the way that you're communicating, because you're getting through people's deletions, distortions, and generalizations about the experience that they're having or what it is that you're saying. Now, people will give their time and energy to those things that are important to them. And remember, all this is processed through this simplified model of communication. So those things that are important to them are what we call their values. People will give their time and their money and their heart to what they believe in, what is important to them. One of the things that I did at my lodge a couple of years back was we needed to revitalize what was going on. And so I gathered my lodge brothers together and I asked them this question. I said, what's important to you about being a Mason? What's important to you about coming to lodge? And we talked about it as a group, and we got to understand, excuse me, we got to understand the things that cause them to show up and the things that cause them to not show up. There was one brother that said, I was talking to Brother Bob, and Brother Bob said that he doesn't come anymore because he's tired of hearing people talk about the Vietnam War. He said, if I want to talk about the Vietnam War, I'd go to the VFW. I don't go to lodge to talk about the Vietnam War. Okay. So that tells us we need to sharpen our focus on what are we talking about? What should we be talking about? And, we should be talking about Masonic things. One of the other brothers said, doing good ritual work is important. And we just don't do good ritual work anymore because we don't even practice. He even made the point of saying, we used to practice how to take a ballot. We don't practice how to take a ballot. Well, guess what we do now? We practice how to do those things. So values are what's important to you and to the group. Beliefs are convictions that we hold true, and they have a connected relationship to values. Attitudes are our collections of values and beliefs together. Put together a little chart to describe this for you. And what you can see is that a person will have any number of values connecting together that form a belief. So Masonically, let's say that my value for being a Mason is fraternity and truth and having a friend and having a confidant. And those together form a belief of trust, that Masons can be trusted. Well, those values and that belief combine together to create an attitude that says, I am comfortable or satisfied or willing or happy to be a part of the Masonic family. That's my attitude towards Masonry. Now, if those values change or my belief changes, then my attitude changes. So if I no longer believe that my brothers can be trusted, then my attitude toward Freemasonry changes. So values are the crux of that. They're the key. Those are the things that we find most important. Values create motivation, and motivation comes in two forms. There's away from motivation and toward motivation. Well, in a volunteer organization, we need to provide motivation and values in a toward way. In other words, with the carrot, not the stick. Because, you know, if you own a company, you can fire somebody. You can dock their pay. You can do all kinds of things. But in a volunteer organization, you can't use a stick. You've got to always use the carrot, because people will vote with their feet. If they're not happy, if their values are not being met, then they will leave. So if you want to fix membership problems within your organization, as a leader of a volunteer organization, the very first attention I would ask you to give is, are you providing the values that the membership, wants in a toward fashion? And if you're not, that's probably the first area that you want to go change. Another thing that you want to build in creating this group dynamic that's going to move the entire team forward is something called a social identity. This is based on the work of Dr. Seranian, excuse me. And I met Dr. Seranian at a convention that I was at. Incredibly brilliant woman. And she developed this field of study, this theory called social identity. And essentially what it says is that if you don't know who you are, then you don't know how to behave. A social identity can define a moral compass, and it sets my attitude and for me and the expectations of others as to who I am. I'm here in Texas. And as I say that, you know, I know there's people from all over the world who have access to this broadcast and are participating. I think it's probably fair to say that you could ask anybody on the planet, what is a Texan? And they will tell you what their perception of a Texan is. Right or wrong, that is the social identity of being a Texan. One of the things that Texas did very effectively was they created an anti-littering campaign. We as Texans have inculcated as part of who we are. And the brand, or not the brand, the tagline for the anti-littering campaign is "Don't mess with Texas." And as Texans, we're proud of that. We're like, yeah, that's right. Don't mess with Texas. And it reminds us to be clean and anti-littering. Social identity is, you might also call it social branding, is very, very strong in the psyche of understanding who somebody is and how they behave. So I ask you, what's the social identity of your chapter? What are you known for? How are you perceived by others? And how do you perceive yourself? Build a social identity that is exciting and meets the needs of your members. So at My Little Blue Lodge, our social identity is we're charitable country masons. Fundamentally, that's it. Country masons means, you know, we don't show up in tux and tails. We're probably doing good to get a collared shirt and the good pair of blue jeans, the ones that you wear to church. We're very charitable in nature. In fact, helping thy neighbor is really a mantra for us. So that's our social identity. If you are a Mason at Ford Masonic Lodge number 270 in the state of Texas, that is the kind of attitude and identity that you connect with and how others see you. So think about what is your social identity and work on creating one that works for your organization. Now, just kind of putting it all together and bringing this presentation to a close, the next topic I want to talk about is how to get everybody realigned and pointed in the same direction, because that's what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to go from a current state to a new state. So just another quick pause and ask Miss Beth, are there any questions on the queue or anything that I need to clarify?
No.
Okay, excellent. So moving on. So let's talk about creating a social identity or a tribe. If you create a social identity, a tribe, a group of people that know who they are, they know where they're going, and they know what it takes to get there. Their hearts are attached to the mission. They have drive, they have desire. By the way, by now you guys should be just chewing at the bit to get that, to want that in your chapter. If you create that, you have created something magical and unstoppable. And that's what we call the tribe. So the first step in doing that, and this is what I did with my lodge here in Texas, is to identify the values for the members and for the membership as a whole. Remember, the question is, what's important to you? So what's important to you about being a member of the Eastern Star? What's important to you about coming to Star meetings? What's important about being recognized as a Star member? Ask all those questions. Find out what are all the words in common that people share, and get the group to agree on a list of about 5 to 7 that are the top most important values. When you have that, then you want to create a shared mission statement or a mission purpose statement and a vision. When you have that, the next step is identify those who will do the work. You have a tool to do that now. It's called Psychogeometrics. Make your teams create your triangles, rectangles, circles, and squiggles, and get them together to execute on the mission, purpose, and vision. And then get on with it. Don't delay, do it. And lastly, hold each other mutually accountable. So if you say you're going to do something, do something. And if a brother or sister doesn't do what they said they were going to do, lovingly and gently remind them that that's their task. It's time to get it done. And if they can't or don't have time or won't, then take it back and assign it to someone else. It'll be okay, trust me. Now, we haven't yet explored the mission purpose statement, so we're going to close with this, because this is kind of getting full circle back to our goal, isn't it? If you don't know where you're going, then any road you take is okay. Well, your mission statement is that long-term goal of where you're going, and it defines everything about what you should be doing. It was a great privilege of mine to work with the Grand Encampment officers of the Grand Encampment, Knights Templar United States of America, to develop their mission and vision statements. And I want you to know that this is a process. I gave them about 3 months in advance, I gave them all homework, and I took the input that they gave me, which was a collection of their values and their visions. I took all that information and I processed it And when we got together, we spent 2 days, and I shared with them what they shared with me, and how their vision, or excuse me, their values came together. And then we started with a common set of values and a common set of ideas for vision, and expanded on that to where over a 2-day time period, we were able to develop a mission statement, which lasts, the durability is 100+ years. It describes in one sentence who gets the benefit and what the benefit is. It's memorable, and it's 5 to 15-ish words, so it's easy to remember. I've oftentimes seen a lot of mission statements that were confused to be, well, let me say it the other way. I've seen a lot of vision statements that were confused to be mission statements. A mission statement should be very succinct and very short, and it provides a broad scope of what it is that we do. For example, the American Red Cross's mission statement is something to the extent of, and I may not have it exactly right, but it's to alleviate human suffering in times of catastrophe. So it tells you who's being helped and when. It doesn't specifically say, oh, we only give out food, right? It says to alleviate human suffering. And so it provides a very broad scope. It's not alleviating animal suffering. There are other organizations that do that. It's alleviating human suffering, and specifically in times of catastrophe. So let me share with you a couple of mission statements and a couple of vision statements. The first is the mission statement for the organization that I'm privileged to be the program executive for, and that's the York Wright Leadership Training Program. Our mission is quite simply to create and deliver leadership excellence to benefit Freemasonry. Point, period, paragraph, end of story. That's it. We will create, deliver leadership excellence to benefit who? Freemasonry. And that means Masons, Stars, DeMolay, Rainbow, Jobs, everybody. So we know what our purpose is, and now we know what it is that we need to do. The Grand Encampments mission statement is providing every Christian Freemason the opportunity to extend his Masonic journey through the chivalric experience. And notice it says specifically who? Christian Freemasons, because the Knights Templar is the only area of Masonry that's secular in nature and is specifically Christian. When we were developing this, the Grand Officers were developing this, we actually spent 45 minutes on the word providing. It was providing, provides, to provide, and we looked at it from all these different angles to decide what was the importance of how we express the energy in the statement. And we ultimately came up with the action word of providing every Christian Freemason the opportunity. So vision statements are different in that they describe the outcome or the objective, and they're as long as they need to be to paint a picture. That's why they're called vision statements, because they're painting a picture. In other words, the reader should be able to see it in their mind's eye. Vision statements are different than mission statements, and that mission statements should be durable for 100+ years. Vision statements are really durable for as long as the existing officers are in office. And even then, it should only modify over time, not dramatically change. So the the vision statement for the York Wright leadership is, we believe that any problem in our fraternity can be solved with effective leadership. The York Wright Leadership Organization is a center of excellence that delivers executive class leadership training and coaching to all York Wright leaders wherever dispersed. Using the philosophy of continuous improvement, we develop, refine, and deliver our services when requested with a team of committed trainers and coaches who practice leadership skills with the heart of a Mason. And this is our vision. And you see this very fact that I'm here visiting with you is part of deliver our services when requested. The Grand Encampments vision statement reads like this. Templary continues to be the most prestigious Masonic organization. We are a group of men proud to wear the uniform of the cross, who share a common faith, mind, and spirit. Through the practice of Christian virtues, we testify to the world that we are leaders in our community and fraternity. This demonstrates our commitment to uphold a standard of excellence within Freemasonry. So that's the vision of the Grand Encampment. So what is your vision? What is your vision for your chapter? I think that's important to figure out because that's going to tell you and everybody else where you want to go. So I have a call to action for you. Do this. Create your vision, set your goals, identify your team players, focus on growing yourself as a leader. And to do that, come join us. You are welcome to join the York Rite Leadership Training Program. The classes are held at the various department conferences around the United States when we can meet together in person. We're actually doing our last training class of the year as I speak. My trainers are working with the Southwest Department right now. And we will probably still do a virtual training at least once a year, even when we can meet in person. It's really expensive. The classes are free. We're so appreciative and thankful to the officers of the Grand Encampment for sponsoring us. And they make this available and books and everything free to you. You do have to pay your own travel and expenses when we hold in-person classes. So just be aware of that. You can go to yorkriteleadership.org for more information. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd love to visit with you. Again, my name's Lane Pierce. My phone number is displayed there. Excuse me. As well as my Facebook URL. I'd be more than happy to connect with you on Facebook. So just a final check with Miss Beth. Are there any questions that I need to attend to?
So they asked at the end if you could speak about the full leadership seminars that are offered. And then the follow-up to that was, are you free on January 30th, 2021 for an all-day seminar? They want to know if the classes are available in Canada or if they're available
Let's take them
to
one at a time.
Eastern Star members.
My buffer is overflowing. So the first question, let me come back to the first question about talking more about it. Am I free on a certain date? I don't know. So I want to encourage that particular person to contact me via my email or phone, which is displayed on the screen. And I would be more than happy to either make myself available or see if one of my trainers are available. I'm sure that we can accommodate them. What was the third one?
Are the classes available in Canada?
Yes.
And or for Eastern Star members?
Okay. So in Canada, yes, but only virtually. And you're welcome to come to a conference in the United States. We have the Northeast Conference, which is usually done up in the Connecticut-ish area. Okay. Last one was, well, this year was supposed to be in New York, and I forget which town in New York, but it was somewhere upstate New York. We usually do the Northwest one in Boise. So if you want to come down to the States, you can. We may add a Canadian one at some point, but I can't promise any of that. Excuse me. We do see value in getting a virtual class. Excuse me, and getting a virtual class in each year. So we'll, that would be available to Canada. Is this available for Eastern Star? Yes. If you're in Star, even the kids. So Rainbow, Nimale, and so forth. If you're in the Masonic family, this is available. Any others?
Just maybe expand a little on the full leadership seminars offered.
Okay. Hopefully this tickle's gone. All right. So the full leadership training program, of which right now I'm tracking a database of about 4,000 people. We've trained, I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but we've probably trained somewhere around 1,500. Probably around 500 of them have graduated the program. And it consists of 3 very distinct classes, and each class runs a full day, usually starting at 8 a.m., running through 5 p.m. in the local time zone. The first class is the Principles of Individual Leadership. It looks at your personal assessment of your leadership abilities and how to improve them and take them to the next level. We also, excuse me, we look at the text that we hand out is Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we go through all of the aspects of personal self-improvement and identifying those characteristics in other people. So for example, psychogeometrics, the squares, rectangles, circles, and squiggles is taught in level 1. In 201, the second level, it's called Principles of Leadership in Group Dynamics. And in that one, we're focused on, okay, so now you're personally effective. So how can you be effective with a group of people? And it's understanding a lot more about how people communicate, the psyche of the group, how to form tribes, those kinds of aspects, how to get values and appeal to the values of the group. The third year, which is actually called 401, is influential communications. Oh, excuse me. The text for 201 is, oh my Lord, it just fell out of my head. Oh, Principle-Centered Leadership, also Stephen Covey. 401 is called Influential Communications. And the idea being is that, okay, you're personally effective, and now you're effective with understanding and leading groups. How can you be persuasive and influential in your communication? It's really about personal growth and how to communicate effectively. The text for that class is my book, which is called The Art of the Presentation. And it's been very well received for those people that have gone through and taken that class. So they're extremely densely packed days of information, and it is available to you. And I hope that's enough description. More details are available on yorkrightleadership.org. Anything else, Beth?
How does one access the program virtually? And we have members in Bolivia that wanted to verify they can access the program.
So as we speak, I actually have one Mason from Ecuador, 2 Masons from the Philippines, and 1 Mason from Venezuela, I believe it is, that's currently taking the online class. So yes, you can come if you're from Bolivia. But at this point, I do have to say that these are only offered in English. Beth, what was the first half of that question?
How does one access the program virtually?
The way you access the program is, first, you need to be admitted to the program. And if you go to the website, yorkrightleadership.org, there is a button there you click, and it says to request admission to the program. You'll fill out a form, and that puts you into the database. At that point, then when we get around to the various conferences where the classes are held, then we send out emails saying it's time to register for the 101 class. And then you have to register to say, yes, I'm going to take the 101 class. If it's an in-person class or if it's a virtual class, whichever the case may be. And then prior to the virtual class, we send out a Zoom link, and we do all these over Zoom. So it's just simply a process of going online and registering to get into the program. Next.
That was our last question.
Okay. Well, Beth, excuse me, thank you so much for being a wonderful hostess and fielding the questions. I appreciate it. And I just want to encourage everybody to step up, dare to be a leader, because you can do it. The very fact that you're part of this fraternity says that you're a leader. So go ahead and wear the mantle, get yourself some education, and let's lead our respective organizations into the next century. God bless and take care.
Thank you very much, Lane. We appreciate your time and your information. It was greatly appreciated, and we enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.